Hi, everybody. Welcome to What a Week. Chris McKinnon here with John Keller, as usual, and a lot to talk about this week, as usual.
Yeah. Where do we start? Where do we end?
I know, right? Let's start with this. Let's start with the recent push here by some conservative state legislatures. Specifically, let's talk about Alabama, to push this basic, almost a total ban on abortion unless a woman's health is in serious risk. That just was signed in by the governor as well. Talk about that.
Right. Well, I mean, the idea of that and other versions of that. We did a story here on the news about the heartbeat bill that's advancing in Georgia and in a number of other states. It's all about overturning Roe v. Wade. And the anti-choice movement in America has been waiting for this political constellation to come into alignment where you've got a conservative anti-choice president, you've got a conservative majority on the court, the U.S. Supreme Court, and they're going for it. And the idea is to get one of these laws that are being passed, and which are inevitably are going to be challenged in court, get a case in front of the court before the 2020 election, which is not going to immediately change the conservative slant of the court, but raises the prospect of, if a Democrat wins, further vacancies occur. It just makes it a little more problematic. So, yeah, as far as the Alabama law goes, I don't know if you caught this, Pat Robertson, the televangelist, came out and said he thought that was too extreme and was not a good test case to get in front of the Supreme Court. If it's too extreme for Pat Robertson, that kind of tells you something. But that's what this is all about. And people should make no mistake about it. This is serious, serious business, because it's entirely possible that that conservative majority on the court could decide, you know what, we don't believe Roe v. Wade is constitutional, and we're going to rule that way.
All right, we'll watch this one probably for at least another year or so. It's going to take a while for it to
It's going to take a while, but I think the timing suggests they'd like to get this done before Election Day next year.
All right. Let's talk about presidential candidate Liz Warren, Massachusetts senator. She has kind of bucked a little bit of the trend recently and said, I'm not going on Fox News for one of these town halls. What do you think about that? Well,
I think it's a smart move in the context of the Democratic primary. It says to the base, it reflects what much of the base feels. I mean, if you look at the polling on where people get their news, there aren't that many Democrats who are looking at Fox News as a reliable source of information, fairly or unfairly. And so she's getting a lot of love for the move on Twitter and among the circles that radiate from the Democratic base, or the left-leaning Democratic base. So in that sense, it was a smart move. She's also getting some criticism from people who say, hey, if you're not prepared to go on, go into the mouth of the lion, if you will, and state your case, you don't have any business being a presidential candidate. I don't know about that. I mean, if she winds up being the nominee, is she going to turn down a debate that Fox News is involved in? No way. And Warren also has shown she went into West Virginia, into hardcore Trump country, to do an event about opioid abuse. She's campaigned in Mississippi and Alabama. So she shows that she gets the need to appeal. I think this was just such an easy pander to the base. She couldn't resist.
Yeah, and she did go all in on kind of blasting Fox News a little bit.
And got a lot of publicity for it.
For sure. Last thing, let's talk about this going on back here at home. And this is kind of a big talker. We've seen a lot of issues going on with anti-Semitism and whatnot. But let's talk about the Lampoon over at Harvard. And it's a satire magazine. But they posted this photo of Anne Frank, if you haven't seen it, basically in a bikini, and said, you know, if she hadn't died, this is what she would have looked like now. This is really stepping in it for
This was the teenage girl whose diary, written while hiding from the Nazis in Amsterdam, became a world-famous document of what it was like to live under this terror, and she eventually died in a Nazi concentration camp. And they superimposed a supermodel's body with her head, and indicating, you know, this is another reason to hate the Holocaust. Well, I mean, it gives a whole new definition to the word sophomoric, even though it looks like these were seniors who were editing the Lampoon and are responsible for this. One point I wanted to make about this is it's being denounced as anti-Semitic, but it's much worse than that. Not that anti-Semitism isn't horrible, but consider the misogyny involved in this. The notion that even Anne Frank, a little girl and a symbol of courage in the face of horrendous oppression, is fair game for this kind of misogynistic treatment. It's kind of scary to me. It reminded me, and okay, maybe this is a little bit of an extreme comparison, but when it came out that Jeffrey Dahmer, the serial killer who would cannibalize his victims, started out killing small animals in his backyard, that's often a tell that a kid is headed for trouble later in life.
Right.
I'd really like to know more about the clowns at the Lampoon who approved this. I read their apology that they posted, and it didn't indicate any real understanding of what they had done wrong, just that, oh, we made people mad. We're sorry that happened. Really scary stuff, and to see it going on at Harvard, it just goes to prove you don't necessarily need brains to get into Harvard, although I guess we sort of already knew that after the whole college admission scandal. So that's my piece. Come at me, Harvard Lampoon types, if you want to. I'm easy to reach.
All right, sounds good. John, appreciate you being here.
Have a great
always.
weekend, Chris.
Yeah, you too. All of you have a great weekend as well, and we will see you next week for What a Week.